All right, folks. Lex Lumpkin Show, Week 16, Christmas special, round two. Everything's going on. Things are great. We're going to do a little bit of a round two preview, a little round one post view. Also talk about some happenings with the league, waiver wire type stuff. Lex Lumpkin versus everybody, I guess. That's just how it goes. You know how I am. But first, as always, a word from our sponsors, Sundog Multimedia. Sundog is an online communication and social media company. What started as a personal tool has since evolved into something much bigger, allowing users to communicate, research, and discover things that impact their lives and daily decisions. Sundog will collaborate with you to build and execute, a modern yet nimble social media strategy by utilizing innovative and traditional media principles. Sundog is also a proud supporter of the Stop Soldier Suicide Foundation. You can follow them on Instagram at sundog_multimedia. That's sundog multimedia at sundog_multimedia. Easy peasy moving and service. Brains, brawn, and true professionalism. That's easy peasy moving and service. Muscle for hire, moving, assembly, errands, you name it. They will do it. Easy peasy is a multi-service team. If you need something, just ask. All right, so it was a kind of it really wasn't too much of an exciting round one, really. I mean, we had a lot of hype going into it. It was big matchups, brother versus brother, Vivers versus Brain, two top four teams. Of course, the Bowen matchup and how the Gabagool division kind of had two teams. It almost felt like, well, I guess Mikey was always kind of established with just his points four, he was safe. But of course, Zach Bowen was hanging on by a thread, and he managed to hold on to that division lead and sneak in, do everything like that. So it was really it was an exciting build-up, but I feel like it was a very deflating kind of finish to that. Of course, Vivers beat Big Brain by 47 points, 137.9 to 90.6. Of course, the concern with Vivers going into it was the fact that from week 6 on, they were averaging about 110 points per game, I think. And then all of a sudden they just come out and they just lost Kyler Murray, everything like that. They come out and they win the game 137.9 points. I mean, that's a huge week. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and Josh Allen, 35.86 points, really did a lot of the heavy lifting there. AJ Brown with 22 points, Kelsey with his usual 15. Derek Carr, I guess, stepped up a little bit with that 19 points. But I mean, for the most part, I mean, we're seeing Zonovan Knight right now kind of turn into a little bit of a pumpkin, maybe. Some people were calling him Zonovan Day, that type of thing. He had 2.3 points, and we'll get to it in a second in the current matchup because a little bit's going on. And there's maybe a little bit of concern now with that Vibers running back. Mostert had a big week, of course, but that was a little bit of a blow up for him, right? The big thing that I want to talk about is Big Brain, right? Yeah, this is kind of the norm for them now, right? They put up these massive regular season numbers. Of course, they were less than, they were like zero point 0.1 points away from having the season lead in points for this week. And they came out and they put up 90 points, 90.66. I know that they want every decimal that they can get. That's how desperate they are, right? They were projected to put up 132. They put up 42 points below their projection. That is just, I mean, that's what we've seen from them every year. And of course, this is their first time playing week or round one, I should say. They've usually been getting that first round bye, but every time their team just comes out and stinks it up. And sure, maybe it was a different reason this time, right? Tannehill, he had to leave the game, and Rodgers, he's just not putting those MVP numbers up. But Mixon did not put anything up, and that's kind of been the talk about him all season, where he's really been his scoring has kind of been carried by that 50-point game that he had. But when it really matters, he comes out and puts up 7.9. They had to start Hunter Henry because Dallas Goedert wasn't able to come back in time. Devontae Adams wasn't able to do anything against the Patriots. Amari Cooper has not done much. Nick Chubb has not done much since Deshaun Watson's come back. And, they got that usual 22-point output from McCaffrey. So it's like, they'll say, I understand the thought process behind just continuing to run it back with this team. But we're seeing these running backs get older. I think Big Brain has to start taking a different approach. If they're not going to do it, I mean, we've seen the same result 3 years in a row now. At some point, something has to change. And, you could still trade and you could still get a lot for at least one of these running backs and, maybe fill out more of that depth. I mean, they've been taking that approach of being so top heavy every year now and not worrying about their bench. Well, maybe that's the key. I mean, we just saw how they just got beat by the team that is known for their depth, right? And this was a team that suffered some serious injuries with Javante early in the season, Kyler at the end of the season. Those are two huge players for them coming in, and they're both on the IR come playoff time, and they were still able to put up 137.9. And that heavy reliance on guys like Cooper and Chubb, and the fact that they have not been able to put up any significant points in Deshaun Watson's comeback, they have not been able to survive that because they don't have people that they can plug and play. So I think that Big Brain needs to make some changes, maybe be active early on in the off season and try and get ahead of things. But I think at some point something needs to change. We all talked about how McMorrow had to do that. I think Big Brain started to enter that territory a little bit. They're kind of masking it now because they were able to still put up a very strong season, regular season, by all standards. But I think that they're a lot closer to being McMorrow than they are to being, a two pins and a championship level team. But that is just my opinion. On the other side of the bracket, we had Go Tigers versus Gino and the Zits, brother versus brother. I feel like this is kind of what people were expecting going into it. Not necessarily this big of a blowout. I mean, that's a 55-point win. The Zits, it wasn't 95 points is not like a terrible week. That's obviously way on the low side, but it's tough to survive anybody going against you scoring 150 points. And Mikey just exploded. Mikey and Josh, I should say, just exploded this week. And pulling up the score right now, but I mean, Joe Burrow continues to just really turn it on. The Bengals are like the hottest team in the league right now, I think. Getting huge play out of Justin Fields continuously, and he's kind of been. I mean, he's really been the MVP for Mikey's team, no doubt. I mean, being able to pick up that and suddenly become like a QB1 just overnight like that and flip the switch and just go crazy for the rest of the season. That's really been carrying him. And then T. Higgins coming back was huge. And, getting small production out of Hollywood and Gerald Everett, that just shows how much other guys were picking it up. Justin Jefferson, 24.3 points. Latavius Murray and Najee Harris really picking it up, combining for 35 points between the two of them. So, of course, the running backs for Mikey was a concern coming in. And the fact that he's able to get that production out of them now is really big. On the other side, it was just a tough week. And losing Jonathan Taylor never helps. He had 1.8 points. He was out right away. He had one touch, and then that was it for him. I feel like the Zits, they were kind of reeling a lot going into the back half of the season and entering the playoffs. And they've really just been scratching and clawing. And it was pretty impressive, the fact that he was still able to get that division title. It just shows the perseverance of the team. But it's just also one of those where all of a sudden when everybody has to show up, it's too tough. And Olave getting hurt, Dalton Schultz not giving him anything. Of course, like I said, Jonathan Taylor, and it was just nobody really went off, and that was the issue. Michael Gallup and the super flex spot getting 0.7. That's just brutal, and that's just how it goes. So tough week for the Zets, but they still have a lot of bullets in the chamber. They got plenty of moves left to make, going into the season. And I think that they got some pieces that they're looking to, maybe shift around. So I think it'll be interesting to see the offseason with the Zets and what they're able to do. I think that they'll always be back in that conversation. It's just they're going to retool a little bit and they're going to take a different approach. Round two, though, I think should be pretty interesting, right? I mean, we're looking at it. It's the Bussy Boys versus the Vibers. And that's a matchup that has already started with the Thursday night game. And then Two Pins versus Mikey. So we'll start with Bussy Boys and the Vibers just because they've already started. And it's been a pretty underwhelming start. I was starting to say, Zonovan Knight, he's kind of turning back into a pumpkin. And we're starting to see why he was a later round pick, that type of thing. Or I think he was he undrafted? But the last 2 weeks now, we've seen like a real steep fall off. And last week week 15, he still had his typical, double-digit 13 touches, only for 23 yards. That efficiency just falls right off. No receptions there. No touchdown to save him either. And then this week, he had six carries for -2 yards. That's just poor. That's awful. 1.8 points there, one catch for 15 yards. That was it. I mean, I know it was rainy conditions. Zach Wilson really just brought the vibes down. And then once Strevler came in, it was really him running the ball. So it was tough to get anything going. On the other side, though, Simcoe, he started Christian Kirk, and he only got him 4.1 points. He was playing in the same weather, and Trevor Lawrence, he looked good, and it was a good game for him, but it was a much better real-life game for Lawrence. Of course, his production got saved by the rushing touchdown. Getting the 6 out of a quarterback like that is always, huge for a fantasy week. But there wasn't much going on in the air there. So Christian Kirk, he had 6 targets, 3 catches, 22 yards. And it was just, very underwhelming. Evan Ingram really seemed to carry all the air yards there. So it's a slow start there. Simcoe's up 4.1 to 1.8. but he's projected to lose by 13 points now. So he's starting Nick Foles at the quarterback slot. Has to start J.K. Dobbins in the Superflex because I don't think he wants to start McSorley there. I think he'd rather go with Dobbins. They're already projected the same, and I trust Dobbins to get more to maybe be more steady. I think the odds of McSorley going off like that, going off for 15, 16 points, I think that's just that's way too hopeful, right? Jalen Hurts is injured, and that's going to be big thing to watch looking forward because if Simcoe can't advance, who knows if he's going to even have Hurts for the championship. And I think that's when he really wants him. And if he has to go in and he still has to start Nick Foles or McSorley or something, it's going to be tough. It would have been key if Simcoe was able to get his backup and pick up Gardner Minshew, but I mean he didn't seem to manage his fab correctly, so he wasn't able to place the proper bid. He actually got outbid for him. So now he's going to start Foles there, and he's got Barkley still, Jacobs, Keenan Allen's heating up. DeAndre Hopkins is, it's questionable just with McSorley being the passer, but you also got to hope that in a spot like that, he's only looking to Hopkins because he's like one of the best receivers in the league. Mike Evans, a little bit of a down year, I think, or, just in terms of touchdowns. Yardage is still all right, but the touchdowns haven't been there. I think at some point everybody's waiting for the Bucs to just kind of put things together, or maybe everything's given up on him. But, at some point, I just feel like he's going to get maybe some touchdown regression if it's now, or positive regression, I should say, to, maybe a few touchdowns to end the season, maybe get it heated up in the postseason, assuming that they make it there and everything like that. But Simcoe's got tough sledding here. I mean, the Vipers, they're the hot team now. I think everybody may be overreacting a little bit to just a huge game and kind of forgetting what we were looking at going into the postseason. But Simcoe's projected to lose by double digits right now. And, his team can do it, but I think his team has to play perfect in order to pull off this, upset, right? So, on the other side, we got 2 Pins versus Go Tigers. It's a finals rematch from last season. Right now, 2 Pins is projected 128.5. Mikey is projected 122.13. It's the same lineup that we saw Mikey run last week. It looks like he's got Fields in Buffalo, a little bit of a tough matchup there. Burrow in New England. I feel like that could be maybe a slow game for Burrow. I mean, maybe I'm just a hopeful biased Pats fan, but Burrow in the cold temperature, he's going against a good defense. He typically struggles against them. Even in that game against Tampa Bay last week, he did not really play great. He had 200 yards. And of course, with the turnovers, that does take away potential yards, that type of thing. But he did not play his best game. So I think against a good defense in the cold on the road could be maybe a little bit of a down game for him. And of course, that could affect T. Higgins as well. He's currently starting, it looks like, Marquise Goodwin. I guess he has to, right? I mean, Hollywood's questionable. He's also got McSorley throwing to him. I don't really know who else he's going to start. He's not going to start Aguilar. He's not going to start Timberland Boots. He's not going to start who did I just see? Marlon Mack. So I guess he has to start Marquise Goodwin. And of course, with Lock It Out, that could be good for him. He has been stepping up sometimes with some touchdown games and stuff like that. So that's an interesting play. I am interested to see how that goes. 2 Pins on the other side is just, they are what they are. Mahomes, Herbert, Ramondre is back, Miles Sanders, Diggs, Chase. I mean, I got to list their whole roster. They're the reigning champs. They are projected to win this one. So I don't have too much to say. It's a pretty straightforward matchup. I think it'll be interesting to see. I mean, my picks right now, I'd say, I think I'm going to take the Bussy Boys. I like the underdog in that early game there. I think I'm also going to go Mikey Bowen. I just think that this is Mikey's to lose at this point. I would almost, if I could shake his hand, I wouldn't. I'd congratulate him. I'd say, you have defied the odds. Everybody counted you out, I should say. All season, beginning of the season, start, middle, end of the season, nobody had you winning it. You snuck in as the 6th seed, just despite what everybody was saying. And, congratulations, Mikey Bowen. I feel like you are the 2023-2022 year 3 champion. So congrats, Mikey Bowen. You will advance against 2 Pins, and I think that you'll be playing the Bussy Boys, where you will dominate him as well. You'll pin him down, and you'll be a total dom. So congrats, Mikey Bowen. That's my official pick to win it all. Mikey Bowen, Josh Winspur. We'll start putting the names on the trophy now. I touched on it with the Bussy Boys, though, with the quarterback problem, and I still think he'll be able to overcome it this week. And hopefully Jalen Hurts can come back sooner rather than later. And I feel like the way that he is, his character, his build, everything like that, I think he's going to do everything he can to come back right away. But Simcoe, he has to start Foles this week. That's pretty much the only option that he's got besides Trace McSorley. And a lot of people have been talking about it. The whole league is mad at me. Everybody's coming at me. That I've had death threats messaged to me, mailed to me. I checked my mail today. I had death threats there. People are upset that I outbid Simcoe for Gardner Minshew on the waiver wire. And a lot of people, I mean, Simcoe saying that he wouldn't have done it. I got, all my best friends, they're turning on me. Nobody believes in me anymore. I got to say, Gardner Minshew, he has been a good fantasy option as a starting quarterback in this league. And he played on some bad teams. And right now, he's going to be playing for the best team in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles. He's got A.J. Brown. He's got Devontae Smith. He's got Dallas Goedert to throw to. I mean, he's got all these options. Miles Sanders to hand it off to. He played well when he had to play last year. And he's a free agent going into this, going into this offseason. So if he plays well, he can become a bridge quarterback for a team. And when you look at what his stats were for when he was a starter on the Jags, by average, he would be my QB2. So if he's a starter next year, he has a chance to be my second best quarterback behind Tua. Why wouldn't I pick him up, right? Dynasty is a year-long game. I can't just play for this season. I got to play for next season. And the thing is, Simcoe was going to pick him up. So it's not like I could have gotten him later in the offseason or something like that. And if I wanted to get him in the offseason and say he goes off and he plays so well in these games, that means that the price is going to go up for, if I want to try and trade for him from Simcoe. So, at some point, I'm hoping that 55 fab looks like a bargain for me when Gardner Minshew is starting for the Indianapolis Colts as their next veteran quarterback that they want to bring in. And, so I had to do it. I had to do what's best for me. It sucks that it happened to my boy, but, I still think that he's going to overcome it. And I think he's 100% moving on to the next round. He's going to face Mikey Bowen, where unfortunately that's a buzzsaw. He doesn't stand a chance, but that's just how it goes. And, I mean, some people, once they're out of contention, they just turn the notifications for the app off, might delete it from their phone, check back in when it's rookie draft time. But that's not how I play, baby. I play year-round, dynasty. That's just how I see it. I had to do what's best for my team. I had to do what's best to further advance my game. So sorry, Simcoe. Had to do what I had to do. That's this week's episode. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy Hanukkah, Jeremy. Thank you, Easy Peasy Moving and Service. Thank you, Sundog Multimedia. We will hear from you next week, and I hope to have the championship teams on when that happens. So enjoy the holiday, enjoy the games this week, and I'll talk to you next week.